Hello, welcome to the Basketball Soapbox, Season 2, Episode 1. The theme song was by Otis McDonald, titled We Made It. Big shout out to him. I kind of tracked him down just to give me the privilege of using that from his theme song and told me just give him a shout out. Very respectable, very nice guy. Love his music. Awesome beats. The NBA recently turned him down for his submission. I suggest you go to his page, Otis McDonald. I'll put the links down below. But he makes awesome music. But yes, this is Season 2 of the Basketball Soapbox, Episode 1, NBA 2022-2023 NBA preview. I'll be going over who I think will make the playoffs and award picks. But I'm so excited for this NBA season because just the talent top to bottom of the league, even the lower tier teams have talent or intriguing players that are even a different level than we've seen before. I think there's just a more talented crop, and especially collective young players, especially in Houston and Indiana and Orlando and Detroit and all these teams that are just building at the bottom. But there's so much talent at the top. There's so much talent in the middle where both conferences in the East and West are going to be a bloodbath. Like every night you're going to have a good game. Every division matchup is going to be a big game. There's going to be rivalry games later in the year. So much talent. So much top-level talent, so much mid-tier talent in the league is just going to be awesome to see. Some trades that have happened, some trades that are pending to happen that everyone's alluding to. But it's just been awesome with the crazy offseason. Kevin Durant demanding a trade, the Boston situation with Ime Udoka, Donovan Mitchell going to the Cavs, the turmoil in L.A. with Russell Westbrook and the Lakers, LeBron extending, in all of that. The Clippers, Paul George and Kawhi Leonard are coming back. There's so much going on. Jamal Murray and Michael Porter Jr. returning to the Nuggets. There's so much going on. There's so much talent returning that kind of skewed the standings last year and maybe have teams higher than what they are, where this has become one of the most probable, unpredictable seasons in NBA history in terms of where teams are finishing. I'm going to be giving a breakdown of teams where they're going to finish this year. That can be skewed by December, November, like just whatever team, wherever they finish, there's a range where there can be a couple spots off. The difference between home court advantage in the first round to the play-in is going to be so close this year because that's how much talent is in the league. Like there's so many good teams in the league that some teams are just going to be in the play-in, and you wouldn't think that. You think playing teams as teams at bottom tier or a team that got injured, has an injured player and they make a run at the end of the season and make it in there. But in terms of what we're seeing, there's going to be teams that are healthy potentially and still be in the play-in just because that's how good the conferences are. That's something that we never seen before in a while. I think the year that Phoenix missed the playoffs, winning 48 games, I think they won that year in the Western Conference. I want to say it was 2012, somewhere way back there. But we have never had both conferences where in terms of the East is this strong, where the East might be stronger than the West this year just in terms of depth and consistency and top-tier players there, where you have Harden, you got Embiid, you got Tatum, you got Brown, you got Giannis, you got Holiday, you got Chris Middleton. You got all these teams up there that just fell off a little bit. You got the uncertainty with Brooklyn, which I'll talk about as well. There's just so many teams that are just going to be top tier and just a different level of play. And it's just like, I can't wait to talk about it. So let's get into it. I'm going to start off with the Eastern Conference. My playoff picks, who's in, who's out. And basically this is simply who's in, who's out, who's basically going to make the playoffs 1 through 6 in each conference. And basically who is in the play-in 7 through 10, and then who's out 11 through 15. And that's going to be interesting to see there. And I'll bring up my spreadsheet here that I have here that's somewhere. Let's switch over. That's my award picks. Don't put that on as yet. All right, but let's get into it. All right, so we're back up here. In the playoffs, obviously 1 through 6 in the play-in. There's 7 through 10 basically in the yellow. And out 11 through 15 in the conferences. I'll hide this here, and we'll go through it right there. I'll try to be a little color coordinated. This is the first time I've done this. There's going to be additions when I bring the other guys on. Kari and Rayner and other people who want to participate that I'll put in their predictions of where they're going to finish there. And let's start off in the Eastern Conference. In the first seed, I have the Philadelphia 76ers, and you're probably wondering why I have that there. The Philadelphia 76ers, I think coming into the season, had the most to prove. You got James Harden being in the best shape of his life. We've seen that before a little bit, but he's usually out of shape. But James Harden looked like he transformed his body. We've seen this from other players and stuff like that, but James Harden has been that guy that's been looking to get his burst back. It looks like he has an understanding entering the season. Hey, I got to be ready, not just in the playoffs. I got to be ready every night for this team to build that consistency first and foremost, and just to build the trust with Joel Embiid. Doc Rivers has raved. Everyone saw that clip with Doc Rivers when he's talking about how they have to run their offense and beat James Harden to beat himself and to basically lead the team and basically be this. I listened to the Woj podcast. He said basically be a mix between the scoring Magic Johnson, but continue the playmaking. But we also need your scoring at times because this team is going to need it. But looking at this team addition of basically the 2018 Houston Rockets, Daniel House, PJ Tucker, bringing those guys in to mix with a Thibault, a Tyrese Maxey who's going to be in position to win a Most Improved Player this year, and just have basically the leading scorer last year, Joel Embiid, who basically got hurt in that first round against Toronto. People forget about that. A freak accident. And basically this team has basically two of the top scorers in the league right now in terms of James Harden and Joel Embiid, but also these guys get to the line a lot. I know James Harden had a fallback with getting to the line last year, being aggressive and stuff like that, but I think he's going to be in a better position with Joel Embiid to play off of Joel Embiid and be able to not have it all be on his shoulders and basically ride the big man through the season, which will lead to my awards picks in a little bit. But in terms of what this team has had, Tyrese Maxey is going to improve. You got a little bit more toughness with PJ Tucker there. You got Daniel House is going to add a little bit more shooting. The pressure is going to be off Tobias Harris to step up every night. We'll see what progress Thibault makes. But in terms of what this team has added and what they've done, I think they have basically two of the best regular season players in the NBA in James Harden and Joel Embiid. They got probably one of the best regular season coaches, Doc Rivers, who's going to try to mentally prepare this team. And that's what Philadelphia has to get better at. But I think over the course of the season, they will do that, get better mentally, get a little bit better, tougher, finish teams off faster. And to have James Harden there, who potentially can have a really big season, and with Joel Embiid, who's been knocking on the door of MVP the past couple of years, that's going to be a two-man combo that's going to pay dividends for the Philadelphia 76ers. And I think the defense of Joel Embiid, adding PJ Tucker there, who can also knock down the corner three, provides a different dynamic to this team that they probably didn't have in the past with Ben Simmons or a Thibault, or there's more shooting on the floor. There's a little bit more better defensively up front on the floor for this team where Joel doesn't have to protect the basket. And yes, I know PJ Tucker is 36 years old or something like that, up there in age, but he's still going to provide dividends. We've seen it. He did it with Milwaukee a little bit. He did it with Miami last year. We're going to see Philadelphia taking the next step forward, and I believe they have the two guys who one who's an MVP and James Harden, who's a past former MVP, who just basically couldn't get out the set. This team, Philadelphia, with the process with Joel Embiid, has not gotten out the second round. This is their best chance to do that with James Harden, Joel Embiid, and a group of guys that want to play hard and play for Doc Rivers, especially that is most important. So that's why I have them finishing number one in the conference. We'll go back here and we'll take a look here at number two. I have the Milwaukee Bucks. I don't think that there's much to be said there besides Giannis Antetokounmpo, who I think is the best player in the game, leading this team. He played in FIBA, the World Cup this offseason. I think he had a little knee injury, which kind of slowed him down a little bit in preseason. But I think as the season goes, he's just going to be a workhorse and be able to really pour it on. I think the only question mark here is that Grayson Allen spot, what they're going to do with that two-guard spot. They lost Dante DiVincenzo to the Warriors. I think Pat Connaughton, I believe he's still there. But they have Drew Holiday returning, who's going to be a menace defensively and offensively. Chris Middleton, who was out in that Boston series, is going to return, looking for a contract extension most likely in Milwaukee. The only question that I have with this team is, are they going to get old in terms of Brook Lopez up front? How are they going to address that going forward into the seaon. Can they stay healthy, especially with those group of guys? They still have Bobby Portis. And they're just going to be – I just think Giannis is just going to be able to make a tear through the league again. And he's going to be – he's already in my top 20 personally all time in just terms of what he's going to add to his resume. He already has the Finals MVP. He has the 2 MVP awards. He has the Defensive Player of the Year award. And what he's just going to be able to add, you can pen him in for 25, 12, and 5 at this point in terms of – and probably a steal and a half and a block and a half a game. I just think he's going to be a force this season and lead the Milwaukee Bucks to a 2 seed. And it's just, I think that Philadelphia is just going to be playing better during the regular season. It might take a couple of games for Giannis to get acclimated, especially coming back from that FIBA World Cup. I think Milwaukee's going to be looking to rest him a little bit, kind of like how they did a couple of years ago, where they keep his minutes at 30 if they can and try to get him through the season where it's going to matter. And especially with Chris Middleton as well, all these guys that play high minutes for them and just get them to the playoffs and make a big dent there. And I think they'll be fine with the 2 seed. As we continue, we got the Boston Celtics at number 3. I'm not going to hide anything here. I'm a Boston Celtics fan, especially when you're thinking about the turmoil this offseason, especially with Ime Udoka, unfortunately, him being suspended for the year. And Rob Williams having surgery on his knee again, basically keeping him out until December, January, reportedly. You're thinking that this team is going to take a little step back there, but it's going to be similar to last season, where I think their backcourt which was a question mark last season, going to be a strength for them this season. They added Malcolm Brogdon. In the preseason, Derek White is shooting a lot better and a little bit more confidence there. Where in the past he was always coming up short a little bit, always missing those shots and a little bit uncertain of his shot. You still got Marcus Smart, Defensive Player of the Year last year. People question that, but his steady play for the team really helped the team going forward, especially into the second half of last season. You look at Payton Pritchard, whatever he can provide potentially, even if he's going to be a trade chip or whatever the case may be, whatever he's able to provide on the back end, he had his moments last season. He's going to definitely be fighting for minutes in that backcourt this year. But you're looking at the strength of this team. You're looking at the only question mark is Robert Williams in the front court, especially what the Celtics are going to do. They have Noah Vonleh, who they brought in through training camp and signed him to opening day roster. Kevin Benbile, I forgot his name. I can't pronounce his name. I'm sorry. But with Al Horford in there and the savviness of that, you're just basically the front court was a strength last season, where there's a question mark this season, especially with the health of Robert Williams. If he can come back in January, February, and make an impact on that end, the Celtics are going to be better. But I think the offense is going to be able to be carried through that backcourt, and especially the Jays with Jason Tatum and Jaylen Brown. Their ascension, I don't think they're going to take a step back. You can see Jaylen Brown's more hungry. Jason Tatum is going to be a little bit more confident, a little bit more aggressive going to the basket. These guys have gotten stronger. They've gotten better and worked on their games. And coming back to the Celtics team that has improved, I know there's question marks with Dino Gallinari being out for the season. That just plugs in Grant Williams. His minutes are going to go up. He's going to be able to provide something there, and especially provide a safe haven for Al Horford to get minutes over the course of the season. So looking at this team, how they're constructed, once they get Rob Williams back, hopefully safe and sound, healthy, and ready to go by January, February, that type of area there, you're hoping that this team's defense is going to pick up. But over the course, I've said it to people, over the first 30 games, I just want to see how their offense is going to be, how the ball movement is going to be, because that was always a question mark there with Smart developing last year. But now you have Malcolm Brogdon. You can play Smart and Malcolm Brogdon together. You can play Derek White coming in there and plug and play those guys, that backcourt, and basically see how this is going to spread. You add a little bit more shooting. You have 3 guys that can drive, dribble, and kick between Smart, Brogdon, and Derek White. So that's going to help open up the floor for the Jays and open up the floor for the big guys for lobs and inside finishes. So the development of that Celtics team is just going to be, I think, is going to be awesome over the course of the season, because just how I think the backcourt is going to gel, but then also when Robert Williams comes back, how the defense is going to get back to that elite level, which it was last year. Joe Mazzulla is going to be underneath a lot of pressure, but I think a lot of things are in place from Ime Udoka the previous year before, where these guys are going to be like, hey, we've been through this before. We know what we are now. Let's continue to build off of that. And I think they're going to be able to do that going forward this season. Continuing at number 4, I have the Cleveland Cavaliers. Cleveland Cavaliers, I mean, talk about a team that bought their time and drafted, made the right moves, and probably their best team without LeBron ever. And that's not an insult to Brad Daughtry and Lenny Wilkins and Larry Nance and Brent Price and Mark Price, Mark Price and all that. That's not an insult to them. But the Darius Garland, you added Donovan Mitchell here, who's probably on the best team he's ever played on. I think he's third in all time in playoff scoring in terms of points per average per game. And you add him to Jared Allen and Evan Mobley. Not to mention Kevin Love and Ricky Rubio, Isaac Okoro. If he can improve his shot whatsoever this season, he's going to be getting a lot of open shots. Everyone was kind of down on Cleveland because how they got ousted by Atlanta last year, but Jared Allen got hurt. They were 5th in defense in the league last season before he went down, and then they were 24th entering the playoffs. Him trying to find his footing back, coming in flat basically for that play-in game last year. If he's able to stay healthy, which has been a question a little bit, but with him and Evan Mobley, those two 7-footers up front, protecting the rim, being able to switch out a little bit there, they're going to be giving Darius Garland and Donovan Mitchell all of the chances out there on the perimeter to gamble. But Isaac Okoro is going to be there too. You have the depth of Kevin Love and Ricky Rubio returning. They traded Lauri Markkanen and Colin Sexton to get Donovan Mitchell in there. Donovan Mitchell is going to be a little bit of an asset. I think there's going to be a little bit of trying to figure out how Darius Garland and Donovan Mitchell man that offense a little bit together. But I think their team is going to be so good defensively that there's going to allow them to have mistakes and be able to figure out over the course of the season and be a primetime player potentially to get to the Eastern Conference Finals. It's not out of the realm here with those two 7-footers and those two scoring guards in the backcourt. It's a good balance and a good mix there. Jared Allen has a solid offensive game who you can give it to and get a couple touches inside and be able to finish and score inside. Evan Mobley, what his game is going to be. Can he expand his game in terms of shooting the ball better and being able to finish there, be able to be better in the pick and roll, pick and pop situation with these two scoring guards that have playmaking capabilities. We saw with Darius Garland where he had to basically create every shot last season and everything fell on him. Now with Donovan Mitchell, they can kind of play between those two guys and not have everything be on Darius Garland. You have a guy that can go out there and get you 25, 30 points a night in Donovan Mitchell. And Donovan Mitchell, for the first time ever, he doesn't have to rely on himself as much anymore. He has bigs that can actually score inside and actually finish a little bit more offensively there and not have the offense be on him. But he also has Darius Garland, who has shown he can be a 28 guy and be able to play, make, and score and be able to hold his own offensively. Donovan Mitchell's not going to have to rely on that too much anymore. And I think that's going to be a big plus, and we'll see how Cleveland's going to fit. We'll see how that backcourt develops over the course of the season, but I got them finishing 4th right now. As we continue here, this was a controversial one, and I struggled with this for a little while. I have the Brooklyn Nets at number 5. I've already talked about Ben Simmons in my last season. Basically, I think my last episode. Second to last episode there. That offense with Kevin Durant, Kyrie Irving, Steph Curry, Joe Harris. The scoring, the shooting, the options are endless for them. We saw it in the preseason. If you were watching, Ben Simmons able to do the high pick and roll with those guys, spread the floor out, get other guys coming off picks and screens and stuff like that to basically get them open. He's going to be free reign to do whatever he needs to do. There's going to be some trouble there with him defending in the front court, I think, as we saw with Karl Anthony Towns attacked him in that preseason game. There's going to be some trouble there with some bigs there in the league. But overall, this team is going to be able to score a lot. Kyrie Irving's looking to be in the best shape of his life, coming in wanting to have individual accolades, strive for MVP, strive to be better. Kevin Durant's coming back even after that turmoil of wanting his coach and GM fired. He's coming back, trying to extinguish that flame that he set in the offseason there, and maybe basically this be their best chance, their last chance to make something happen here in Brooklyn before another uncertain of offseason comes up. So you have that. You got Joe Harris returning, Steph Curry there. Just he's gonna be in a dream because he's gonna be open. You got to guard Steph. You got to guard Kyrie Irving. You got to guard Kevin Durant. These shooters here with Joe Harris and Steph Curry, they're going to get their touches. They're going to get their shots. They're a little weak up in the front court in terms of defensively what they can do with Nick Claxton, Ben Simmons. How is that going to develop over the course of the season? This team might want to look at Dwight Howard or another big out there, or DeMarcus Cousins, just somebody else just to have somebody put in there. Not in terms of defensively with Marcus Cousins, but just another productive big that creates an offensive threat on the floor and also a good passer. But in terms of what they need in terms of size, I think they should look at a Dwight Howard or a big there just to solidify and get a little big more in rotation there up front, where you're not demanding on Kevin Durant up there to put him there next to Ben Simmons to provide more rim protection, another lengthy defender. So in terms of that, I think their offense is going to carry them through the regular season. I think once they get to the playoffs, the issue is going to be their defense, because there's going to be a time when Kyrie Irving doesn't have it going. There's going to be a time when Kevin Durant doesn't have it going. Do I think Steph Curry and Joe Harris are enough to carry an offense through a game or a playoff series? I do not. And there's going to be a time where we saw in Philly, just like we're going to see in Brooklyn, they're going to back off Ben Simmons. Can he knock down the 15-footer? Can he knock down the space down three? Can he do that? Can he be productive and stay on the floor where he can help Kevin Durant? He can help Kyrie Irving, not just in passing and playmaking, but can he score? They're not going to get all the transition points. That's not going to happen in the playoffs. It's going to come down to, can he knock down a jump shot? But I think in the regular season, they're going to be good. I think their offense is just going to be crazy. There's going to be a tough night tonight, but I think in the playoffs, it's going to be a little different. Moving on, we got the last team in the playoffs, I think, that are guaranteeing their playoff spot, the Miami Heat. And what can you say about the Miami Heat? Jimmy Butler. I think it's just Heat culture. I just believe in Miami. I think Bam Adebayo is going to come back better. I think Tyler Hero is going to come back better. Duncan Robinson, the pressure is going to be a little bit off of him a little bit. He's going to be easing back. The only question mark is Kyle Lowry to me and their depth of this team. But I think overall, they just find a way to win games. They're tough as nails defensively with Bam Adebayo and Jimmy Butler and Kyle Lowry. They're just going to be there. I can't explain nothing more than that. I think they're going to be a little bit better than Toronto, which I have in the play, and I'll get into that as my next team. But I just think Miami, with Jimmy Butler developing, continuing to lead, Eric Spoelstra, Heat culture. I don't know what it is, but they just find a way to just push. And I think they're going to take a little step back here because it's just the way. I don't think they have as much depth as the other teams going forward, but I think they're going to fight and find a way just to win their division and get out and be ahead of everybody in the Southeast division there, ahead of Atlanta, ahead of Orlando, and ahead of all these other teams there. I just think Jimmy Butler is a good leader in this team. He gets a little bit more flack than I think he deserves. I think he should get a little bit more praise. But in terms of what Miami does and how they're built, I think they're going to be okay and make the playoffs and not be in the play. Moving on, we got Toronto, the immersion of Scotty Barnes and Pascal Siakam. That front court, how they're playing together, is going to be. Everyone just loves how they play. Everyone's really high on Toronto. Some people are trying to sneakily say they can win the division, which I don't think they can. But in terms of the development of Scotty Barnes, how his shot's going to develop, OG Anunoby, he's came out a killer against Boston the other night. His shooting's going to be, he's going to get a lot of open shots. Fred VanVleet out there developing. Boucher, they just have a lot of guys, Princess Achua, a lot of guys that can throw at you that are lengthy, and especially in the front court that can defend and finish and shoot. But Pascal Siakam, who finished the NBA, All-NBA third team last year, he's on this team. So we can't ignore that from Toronto. Nick Nurse is well coached with this team, the way they continue to develop their young guys. And the season's really going to be predicated on how Scotty Barnes does and Fred VanVleet. And all these guys that can score and finish. I don't know if their offense is going to be good enough, but the development of this team, especially up front, is going to pay dividends. Let's move on to my next team here, the Atlanta Hawks. And I have them very low in the term, despite them trading for Javonte Murray. I just don't know how these pieces are all going to fit. And I think Javonte Murray takes a little bit of pressure off of Trae Young, where the ball's not in Trae Young's hands all the time, which I think will help this team going forward. John Collins returns. He doesn't have a contract. What's the guy, the big man? Okonkwo up there in front with Capella. How is that going to develop? How is Capella going to be playing, even though I think he led the league in rebounding last year. But in terms of how that front court's going to be, there's a lot of guys that still need minutes where they still have the issues with Cam Reddish last year before trading him. DeAndre Hunter just signed a 4-year, I think, $95 million deal. His minutes, they're expecting a lot out of him to score and be that second guy on that team. A big-time hot microwave scorer for them. But how does that develop across the team that has Bogdanovich on the bench there? There's a lot of mouths to feed. A lot of uncertainty there. How is Nate McMillan going to navigate all this with those guards? They have to do it on the defensive end, especially in my opinion. But we'll see how they go. But I have them finishing ninth. I just don't know if there's going to be enough continuity. Health is always an issue with Atlanta. We'll see how that goes going forward. Oh, did I do that? Yes, I did do that. I have the Knicks there at number 9. New York Knicks. This is just flat out for me. How is Tibbs going to man this roster in terms of rotation-wise? They got Jalen Brunson, who they're going to rely on. How's that front court with Julius Randle, Obi Toppin, and Mitchell Robinson going to develop there? People say you can't play Obi Toppin and Julius Randle together, but obviously you need Obi Toppin to play because there's that talent there. There's that development that you can see kind of shining through a little bit there. Derrick Rose is returning. But how is Jalen Brunson going to be able to man this now as the man? He's going to be able to score 20 points a night. How is this team going to respond to Tibbs? Tibbs has a short, I think in my eyes, a short window there in terms of developing a team, especially with the Chicago. We saw how it fell out there. We saw how it fell out in Minnesota. Is this on the verge of how it's going to fall out in New York? And it's just development. It's just the thought process of Quentin Grimes, Emmanuel Quickley. How are they going to build that consistency, especially on the defensive end? Can they do that? Can they turn it around from the bubble and develop these guys and be primetime players in the Eastern Conference? Can they do that? I don't know. Tibbs has always had trouble of getting teams over that hump in terms of development, especially if he doesn't have the star guys like Derrick Rose in the past and stuff like that. But with this team, with the Knicks, it's all about, can they get Julius Randle back to all-NBA play? That is very important for the New York Knicks in terms of what they're doing going forward. Can they do that with this team here? And can they put together a season like they did 2 years ago, but actually sustain it? I don't know. I think there's going to be a development over the course of the season. People have talked about they're in play for trades. They still have Evan Fournier that they can trade. They have other guys that they can trade in terms of, especially if they want to pair off with Julius Randle. Is there a trade out there that they can go get somebody? That is a potential option for them going forward in this season. I don't think they're going to tank and try to go for Victor Wembanyama and go into the lottery. I don't think this team wants to do that. I think they want to show that they can be in the playoffs and potentially be there. And they have a chance to do so if everything breaks right for them, if Julius Randle steps up his play, if Mitchell Robinson stays healthy. There's a lot of ifs there, but I think it's just the playing style and coaching style of Tibbs. How is he going to man that roster? Is he going to play the young guys when they're needed? Is he going to play the right guys at the right time, which has always been a question in his coaching career? Is he going to be able to do that going forward this season with the New York Knicks? Who knows? But I got them finishing ninth. And what do I have? I have the Bulls finishing 10th as the last playing team. I thought I had them a little higher, but I guess I did not. But the question mark with Lonzo Ball and that knee injury, which has been lingering since January. It's now almost January again. I know it's October, but that's a long time for that knee to heal. They thought he would be back and ready. He's still having issues. Ayu Dosa, I believe, was the backup they had last year. That was played pretty solid. They still have Caruso. Patrick Williams is returning. But can DeMar DeRozan and Zach LaVine strike lightning in the bottle like they did last season, earlier in last season. Can they do that again? This team is going to have issues defensively without Lonzo Ball, I think. I think Caruso is going to try his best up there. Patrick Williams is going to return and probably add to that impactive side of that. But a lot of the thing that got them off to a good start was the defense of Lonzo Ball and Alex Caruso leading that backcourt. And it's just in terms of what is Chicago going to do in terms of building around DeMar DeRozan and Zach LaVine. They gave Zach LaVine that extension. How is that going to play out going forward? What are their options? They traded their picks for Vucevic last year. Is he going to be big time for them this year? I believe he's up for a contract extension as well. But I just don't know if that intensity that they hit lightning in the bottle last season, I don't know if it's going to be there this year. It just depends if DeMar DeRozan and Zach LaVine can take this team to the next level. I think they have a little bit – those two guys have a little bit more star power than the Knicks. But in terms of the rest of their team, can they carry the rest of the team where we haven't seen that from them consistently throughout their careers? Can they do it now moving forward with this team, especially with Lonzo being out? Is Caruso going to be able to step up? They signed Goran Dragic, but he's on his last legs in the league, in my opinion. I don't know what he's going to be able to bring, maybe a little bit more veteran and find a little bit more of that scoring streak that he's had in other stops. But I think Chicago's going to have a little bit of trouble this season. Moving on, I have the Washington Wizards. They have Bradley Beal and Porzingis. They traded for Will Barton and Monte Norris last season in the offseason just now. So they got a little bit more scoring on their team, a little bit more buzz. Rui Hachimura, who's looking to have a big season this upcoming season, really looking to pick up his game. And we saw some things in preseason in terms of intensity and aggressiveness and a little bit more willing to score. Can he fit next to a Bradley Beal and Porzingis and be able to be that third guy for them and be able to turn up? But we don't expect much from the Washington Wizards. We've seen this with Bradley Beal and Porzingis. They have two guys there that can win some games and cause some trouble a little bit, but we got to see how it works first. We got to see how it works between these two, Bradley Beal and Porzingis, and how long is Bradley Beal going to sit there and fester if this thing goes bad? Is always a question mark in the back of people's heads. He signed that big contract extension. How is this going to be going forward for this team is going to be interesting. But we got to see how it goes. Washington has been in turmoil ever since the John Wall trade there. They picked Bradley Beal. They traded John Wall, trying to figure it out, and they still haven't been able to figure it out. I think they made the plan with they made the playoffs a couple years ago. I believe it was the bubble season not the bubble season. What was it? The year after the 2021 season, where they lost to Philadelphia. And it's just like that was with Russell Westbrook and Bradley Beal there. Are we expecting them to be better than that team? I think they have a couple more pieces there, but I think the East is stronger than when it was then. And I don't know what direction Washington is going to go. They still have Porzingis. They have Bradley Beal. They have talent, but how can they put that together in this tougher Eastern Conference with more cohesive teams? I don't know if they can even make a dent in their division. I don't think they're better than Atlanta. I don't think they're better than Miami. I think they might not even, depending how things go talent-wise, I don't know if they're better than Orlando. I have them ahead of Orlando, but you can make the argument that Orlando has more talent, a little bit more a better functioning team than them, which I'll get into next. The Orlando Magic, who I have 12th. And I struggle with this around here because I'm high on Orlando and I'm high on Detroit, but let's start with Orlando. We drafted Paolo Banchero out of Duke, who seems to be ready to go, ready to be a 20-9 guy in the league and ready to really be out there with Franz Wagner. It's just the develop. I just have a question mark of how are all these pieces going to work. Jonathan Isaac is coming back. Mo Bamba, Wendell Carter, Paulo Banchero. You got to play these guys. Terrence Ross, Markelle Fultz, Cole Anthony, all these guys, Jalen Suggs, who they were high on. Like, how are they going to put all these pieces together and create something, make something happen? Franz Wagner was a steal in that trade with Nikola Vucevic, and he's really gotten off to a really good start in his NBA career, and I think that's positive for Orlando. That's a guy they need, a guy that's a little aggressive, a guy that can shoot the ball, a guy who can score, to put him with Paulo Banchero And those other guys, what is Mo Bamba going to be? What is Jonathan Isaac returning going to be? There's so many question marks, and I think they're a little too front court heavy, a little too guard heavy. They got to thin it out and figure out who they're going to get rid of and see if they can bring any assets or picks there and bring some more veteran guys there for that team to create some type of playoff push and not be such a detriment in the Eastern Conference. Can they take that next step? I think that's the question for them. I think they just need to figure out what they're doing with their front court. What are they doing with their back court? All that clutter. Are you going with the young guys? Are you going with these mid prospects that you guys have drafted and try to develop? What is the direction of this team? Is Paulo Banchero the guy that you guys are going to lean on to carry the offense and be a force? There's so many question marks of what this team is. They have a lot of talented guys, but there's just too much talent there that I think of guys that do the same thing, guys that are all going to be looking for the same amount of minutes. They're all young, but what direction is Orlando going to be? I don't know. I think they still take a couple years to figure that out. The next team I have, the Detroit Pistons, and I battled with this. I battled with this for a while because Detroit, I like all their players. Cade Cunningham, Jaden Ivey they drafted, Sadiq Bey, Isaiah Stewart, Jalen Duren, who they got in the trade there in the draft. I like all their players. They traded for Bogdanovich and from Utah. I like all their players, and I'm sitting there like, I think they can make the play-in, honestly. I think they can make the play-in. But do I think there's other teams potentially better than them? Yes. I think everything has to break right for them. I think Jaden Ivey has to come in with all guns blazing. I think Cade Cunningham has to get a little bit more efficient from the field, get a little bit better. He developed a little bit more towards the end of last season. I like the guy, Jalen Duren, in the front court who they have. I think he's going to be a nice guy, especially a lob threat and a physical presence on the inside. I just really like all their players. I think Dwayne Casey's trying to get into these guys and really get them to understand what they could be, working on the ground level and develop these guys. And I wanted to put them in the play, and I wouldn't be shocked if they made the play because I just like all their pieces around them. I think they're building the team the correct way, the right way, developing the right way. But I just couldn't do it, and I'm going to hate myself for that because I think they really can make the play. And especially with teams tanking, they don't have to tank. I think they have their core in place. I think they just need to develop their guys. But going forward, I think that they are going to fall short a little bit, but I wouldn't be surprised if they did make the playoffs. I would not be surprised at all. Moving forward, we have the Charlotte Hornets. Now, I think this is a team that's going to tank, and they should tank. There's no reason why Charlotte should not tank here and try to get Victor Wembanyama and try to get up there. What's the worst that can happen? Trade Terry Rozier, trade Gordon Hayward. You don't have Miles Bridges on your team. Who's on this team outside of those guys? Terry Rozier is a good, nice young guard. Gordon Hayward's a good veteran. But P.J. Washington, Mark Williams, Mason Plumlee, one of their guys got arrested again just now. It's like, what is going on there? Tank, trade for picks, do it. Like, this is a chance for you to hit the reset, get LaMelo Ball some help. He's already going to be injured to start the season. I ironically drafted him on my fantasy team. But he has that high ankle sprain. They're not going to be rushing to get him back. So what do? I think you should tank. Michael Jordan, if you're listening, whoever, Mitch Kupchak, whoever's down there in Charlotte, just tank. It's okay. You're Charlotte. You're going to be okay. I know you're going to try to make the playoffs and that's what you're going to push for and try to get there. Don't do it. It's not there. Just tank, please. Just tank. Charlotte, just tank. Don't waste your time there. Just tank. I understand they brought back Steve Clifford. I know that was a question mark hiring. I think James Borrego was their coach, and they basically didn't like how he coached in the play-in the last 2 years. So basically, that's why they fired him. How he coached LaMelo there a little bit. But bringing back Steve Clifford, that's a guy they already fired before, so I don't know how that's going to work. But he is a good defensive coach. Maybe that's something they're looking to develop there, and we'll see how that goes. But Charlotte, don't waste nobody's time. Just tank, please. Just tank. That's all you need to do. Don't worry about anything else. Just tank. It's going to be okay. And who I have finishing last is, as I get the right camera up, is the Indiana Pacers, who are also probably an intriguing team there in terms of what they could offer around the league in terms of Miles Turner, Buddy Hield, TJ McConnell. What are they going to be able to get that? I think everyone's kind of fishing that Russell Westbrook type of deal there from the Lakers. And I'm like, I think they can get a little bit more. I think they can get a better offers around the league for even those guys individually. Teams know you want to get rid of them, but I think there's teams out there that are going to be willing to trade a first, maybe even two, a player in cash consideration. Whatever the case may be, I think there can be better offers. If Russell Westbrook is the move, that you clear cap space fast and you get rid of Buddy Hield and Miles Turner. Also, TJ McConnell, I think a veteran team can be looking for him as a backup point guard as an option. He's an option that can be out there for trades. But I'm very intrigued with Tyrese Halliburton this year and Benedict Mathurin, the rookie they drafted. I think those two guys are going to blend well. I think they're going to be able to play fast with Rick Carlisle. But they're not going to. I don't think they should look to win here. This is a chance for Indiana to change their franchise history. And in the case if you do miss on Victor Wembanyama, you still have draft picks that you can acquire in those trades for Miles Turner, Buddy Hield, and TJ McConnell. So it's not all the doom and gloom right now. But you can figure out a way to clear cap space and get your team ready for a rebuild, which you already have with Tyrese Halliburton and Benedict Mathurin, in my opinion, anyway. So why not just cut to the chase and do that? All these teams that are especially 11 through 15 tank. What's the point of holding on, trying to figure it out? Don't do it. Teams are going to, I think everybody said it, Woj, a lot of draft analysts, experts and stuff said that there's going to be so much tanking in the NBA in terms of lower seed teams getting rid of players. And I'll get to that in the Western Conference as well, where they're just going to be tanking and being like, hey, why not? Why not try to get this guy that's a 7'4" freak out of France, Victor Wembanyama or Scoot Jackson, whichever one there. But in terms of Indiana, they should be trying to go all in for Victor Wembanyama. They shouldn't even waste no time. All right, that will do it for the Eastern Conference. Now let's get into the Western Conference, where there's a lot of turmoil there too in the Western Conference. Now, is there? You got the whole stuff with Draymond. You got the DeAndre Ayton. You got the changeover with the Mavericks. You got guys returning and coming back. But let's get into it. As I look into the Western Conference, I have the Warriors finishing number one in the Western Conference. And yes, that's even with the Draymond Green punching Jordan Poole. I don't think that's going to be – I think that similar to Miami, how they had Jimmy Butler fighting with Spo last season. I think Draymond Green is wearing thin there a little bit, but they have the infrastructure in place. They have the depth in place to manage Draymond. Like, I don't think that's going to be as big as of an issue for them going forward. In terms of, they just signed Jordan Poole to 4 years, $104 million. They just extended Andrew Wiggins 4 years, $109 million. It looks like they're going in that direction of wings and depth. And just looking at the development of Jameis Wiseman, Jonathan Kuminga, Moses Moody, these other guys that they have drafted in this incubator that they have drafted, all these young guys with Steph Curry, Klay Thompson. Jordan Poole's only 22, but they have Jonathan Kuminga, Moses Moody, all these guys 22 and under with Steph Curry, Klay Thompson as the lead. I know people don't think of him much, but Kevon Looney, excuse me, Kevon Looney there has been there through those championship teams. Draymond Green is still there, looking to play for a contract somewhere else, potentially even a contract extension, opting in and weighing his choices. He wants to have a good season. He doesn't want to mess up, even though he punched Jordan Poole and knocked him out. I still think there's enough of an incubator there for that team there to develop the young guys and still rely on Steph Curry, top player in the game, Klay Thompson. He's going to be having a full off season to get back and return to form for their team. And I just think that's a well-oiled machine. Unless something injuries happen, let's say something happens to Draymond, Jonathan Kuminga can come in and play. They have other options. They added Dante DiVincenzo. There's so many options to this Warriors team where it's like, we've been here before. We know what to do. We're going to get through this regular season. I think they're going to finish number one again. Moving to the second team is probably going to be a surprise. I have the Denver Nuggets. I just believe in Nikola Jokic. I just believe in this guy. I watched him play a lot last season, and what he does for his team and able to get to 46 wins last season with Bones Highland, Will Barton, Aaron Gordon, and not have Jamal Murray or Michael Porter Jr. and not have that offense and not have everybody around him and not have everything be perfect for him to basically enter a season where Jamal Murray's coming back, Michael Porter Jr. is coming back. And he won 46 wins without those two guys. Like, let that sink in. You know what I mean? Like 46 games without two of your best offensive weapons, and now they're coming back to this guy that's just a savant on offense and able to pass, shoot, score inside, be tough inside on the rebounds, get better defensively. And I thought that was something that Aaron Gordon, despite not carrying his offensive game last season, I think his defensive game on that side with Joker allowed Joker to be a little bit more confident in defending and able to contest. He had a couple game-winning blocks last season, which is interesting for a guy who can't jump over a phone book. But in terms of what this team is, I think their offense is just going to be lightning. And I think Nikola Jokic playing with all these guys here is just going to be able to dime guys up. And the good two-man game between him and Murray is going to come back. And Michael Porter Jr. is going to be able to ease back in. Bones Highland's going to get a lot more shots there. And we're just going to see the development of this team. They traded for KCP, who I think is a knockdown shooter, a little bit more sturdy defensively, something that they needed in the backcourt there, going with that team. And Ish Smith as well, just a guard that's going to be a backup and just been consistent throughout his whole career, is just being solid. I really like their team. I really like Joker. I like Jamal Murray coming back. I like Michael Porter Jr. coming back to shoot for them. To be an offensive threat for them. I really like their team there. They can be a surprise in the Western Conference coming back with all those guys there. As we move to number 3, I have the Los Angeles Clippers and the addition of John Wall. Norman Powell's coming back after that foot injury. Kawhi Leonard and Paul George are coming back. Reggie Jackson is still there. They added John Wall. Ivan Zubac got that extension in the offseason. And this team is well coached. Ty Lue has gained a reputation of being one of the best adjustment coaches in the NBA. We're going to see that. It's just the only question with this team is health. And if they can get us that sweet spot of 65 games for Kawhi Leonard and Paul George, not together, but playing both of them 65 games and up, if that's even possible, this team is going to be scary just with the depth they have, and Luke Kennard and Norman Powell. And all these guys that are shooters, Reggie Jackson and John Wall, like you look at their team and it's like this team around George and Kawhi Leonard should be deadly, should be scary. The only question I've said the past couple of years, I remember last year I was like, this team can't keep a team underneath 100 points. I think that's the only question mark there is if their defense can get better, if they can get better defensively and able to hold teams to low percentage shots and keep certain teams underneath 100 points, I think this team is going to be scary. A lot of people have them winning the West. A lot of them have them going to the finals. Some people are picking them to win the finals, and it's like we've been waiting for this for 4 years. Hopefully we have a healthy Paul George, a healthy Kawhi Leonard for the season for the Clippers, but I think they're going to be very good, very, very good during the regular season, and we'll see what they can do in the playoffs. Moving forward at number 4, I have the Phoenix Suns. This team won 64 games last season, correct? Everyone's sitting there saying they got their ass whipped by Luka Doncic and the Mavs. Yes, they did. Luka, Jalen Brunson destroyed them over that 7-game series at home, which is alarming. But I think people are realizing that some people are saying they had COVID during Game 7, whatever the case may be. Let's not make any excuses. But I think Chris Paul, I think the development of this team is going to be the development of Devin Booker with DeAndre Ayton. run the offense through them. Give Chris Paul a break. Chris Paul is going to be, 37 years old, 36 years old, whatever the case may be. You can't keep running that much usage through your point guard at that age in this league, especially when he's undersized. You cannot do that. And I think they're going to understand that, to use other guys there, create more spacing, adding Cam Johnson there. Potentially, what are they going to do with Jay Crowder, who demanded a trade? But Cam Johnson looks like he's going to be the foreman for this team going forward, which I think is a plus for them. He's the better prospect and better option for this team, I think, shooting-wise, defensively, his length, his size on the floor. He can do a little bit more than Jay Crowder, in my opinion. What they get back in for Jay Crowder, in my opinion, is going to be another option there. I think they need to get another big man. They cannot rely on Dario Saric coming back, but I think this team is going to be running on Devin Booker and DeAndre Ayton. Force feed those guys the ball. Those guys are going to be your leaders this year. Get them the ball, and I think they turn it around. I think they turn around from last season saying, "Hey, we embarrassed ourselves last season. Let's get back on it." Chris Paul is still going to be manning the ship, but rely on those other guys. Rely on your young dogs to get you through the offseason, the regular season. And then when you get to the postseason, pick your spots if you're Chris Paul. I thought they missed the opportunity to get a backup point guard here, Dennis Schroeder or somebody. They needed somebody there to back up Chris Paul. Cam Payne is going to try to get back on the right ship and get right back on it and try to pick up where he left off 2 seasons ago. Not last season, because last season he wasn't playing pretty good in the postseason. But we'll see what they can do. I just think that Devin Booker and DeAndre Ayton are going to be big time this year and be able to lead that team. Moving on, we have the Memphis Grizzlies at number 5. Ja Morant is going to be spectacular this season. Let's just cut to the chase there. He's going to be spectacular. I know they're going to be missing Jaren Jackson Jr. to an injury. I believe it's his foot. He signed an extension. He's going to be out until at least January, but they still have the depth there in terms of Brandon Clark, who had a fantastic postseason, who just signed a 4-year, $52 million deal. I think he's going to pay dividends for this team in the absence of Jaren Jackson Jr. He's not going to be able to do everything that Jaren Jackson does, but his ability to score, finish inside, and play on the boards, especially get the rebounds, I think that's going to be a plus there. And I think the evolution of this team is basically when Jaren Jackson returns, can he stay on the floor, but also switch him down to the 5 and play him and Brandon Clark together late in game situations, spreading the floor and being still solid defensively. They still have the development of Desmond Bane, I think, who they're going to rely on a lot this year with Dylan Brooks and figure out what they're going to do with that backcourt. Zaire Williams. They have all these other guys there that they have carried through the fold there, and people are kind of questioning what Memphis is going to be. I think the only question there is because Jaren Jackson Jr. is going to be out for a couple months. But Ja Morant's going to be spectacular. He's going to be trying to rip the steel, the metal off the rim. He's going to be doing everything spectacular, and I think he's going to be able to keep that team afloat until Jaren Jackson Jr. gets back and adds a little bit to their defense and scoring, hopefully. Who I had most improved player last year, but was wrong because of injury and him fouling and certain stuff like that, and basically just taking a back seat. But I think him coming back is going to help that team a lot. Moving on, at number 6, we have the Minnesota Timberwolves, who added Rudy Gobert over the offseason, and they're going to try to figure out how they're going to play Karl-Anthony Towns and Rudy together in that front court. But I think what happens here is that if Rudy is running into trouble, you can still play Karl-Anthony Towns if needed at the 5, which is not going to be great defensively. But maybe Rudy Gobert can rub off on Karl-Anthony Towns to be a little bit more solid, a little bit more dependable defensively for this team. Of course, that development of Anthony Edwards. We're going to see what D'Angelo Russell can bring to the table as that other guy. And I think they're going to be good. I mean, that was a question. They were a terrible rebounding team last year. Rudy Gobert is one of the best defenders and one of the best rebounders. He's one of the best defenders in the league. He's going to bring that to Minnesota, and I don't think that's going to change. I think he improves them defensively tremendously. I think he improves that team. But the question, of course, kind of similar to what the Ben Simmons is, how is this going to play in the playoffs? Is he going to be able to stay on the floor, be effective offensively on the floor, and not get in those switching situations where people are going to look for this team, especially Karl-Anthony Towns, D'Angelo Russell, how is that going to help in the switching department? I think overall, the course of the regular season, they're going to be good, but we'll see what they come playoff time. Moving on, I have the Los Angeles Lakers. The West Coast Ballerinas. I have them finishing 7th. Russell Westbrook's probably one of my favorite players all time in the NBA just because of how much he gives to the game. But it's clear that they're trying to figure out ways to either move him or move him to the bench or just try to salvage the season with him. I think it would be best if they traded him to get Miles Turner and Buddy Hield, because that's what basically LeBron needs. He needs shooting, he needs spacing, but also a Miles Turner would desperately improve the front court of this team. Against the big question mark is whatever bench they have. Austin Reeves, Matt Ryan, who they just picked up in this offseason and preseason, Lonnie Walker, Kendrick Nunn, Patrick Beverley. What can these guys bring? Can they bring any athleticism and three-point shooting, especially defending to this team? Thomas Bryant. What can they bring to this team in terms of shooting and defending and be able to fill those holes that LeBron needs on the defensive end? And can they be consistent enough shooting the ball to provide spacing for him and Anthony Davis? And that's basically all it is. But also, most importantly, the health to LeBron James, the health to Anthony Davis. These guys have had injuries and have been out the past couple of years outside the 2020 season where they won the championship in the bubble. Can this team stay healthy? I'm figuring there's been a stat out there that they're 70% win. They win 70% of their games when Anthony Davis and LeBron James is out there. But with that denomination of health and Russell Westbrook, can this team stay afloat to be in this tough Western Conference where I think there's a little teams with more depth, a little bit more of an idea what their bench and role players can do? It's going to be tough for LeBron and tough for AD to stay healthy the whole season. Well, not to be healthy, because if their health is right, they're going to be okay. But what can they get out of the others on this team? I think Kendrick Nunn is somebody that the league has forgotten because he's been out since last year. He was out in the bubble with the COVID and stuff like that. So him returning, I think he's going to be a big plus for that team, for the Lakers. But in terms of the only question mark is here is health. Can they stay healthy enough in this gauntlet of a Western Conference to make an impact, possibly fight out of the play-in? We'll see. But I have them in the play-in, and I think they'll go from there, and we'll see what they can do. Moving on, we have the Mavs, and people are probably going to kill me for this pick, and I understand it. Let me get into this because I think the advantage that Jalen Brunson gave them was a little bit too on the offensive end to create mismatches and have that scoring. Spencer Dinwiddie's a good scorer and a solid scorer, but not to the tier of Jalen Brunson, I think. I think he brings a little bit more playmaking to his game than Jalen Brunson. But that 3-guard lineup where you're able to spread it with Luka, Spencer Dinwiddie, and Jalen Brunson, they don't have that now. I know they drafted that young kid, I forgot his name, but I don't know if he's going to be ready to go and play next to Luka right away. They added Christian Wood, who they're not going to start. Jason Kidd already came out and said they're not going to start, and how he fits into that team. We saw how Christian Wood played. How Luka Doncic played next to Porzingis, a guy who can stretch the floor and get his own shot. Christian Wood, how is he going to be able to fit in that role? Maybe he's a little bit better in the pick and roll situation, a little bit more looking to get his. But how is that going to play for this team? Especially defensively, they're going to be one of the top defensive teams. Jason Kidd somehow did that. I don't know how he's done it in every stop in Milwaukee. And when he was with LA, he got them to play defense. And when he was with Brooklyn, they were solid defensively. But just in general, how is he going to continue to just rely on Luka? And I kind of compare this season for Luka to the 2008 season of LeBron there, where they kind of took a step back in the Eastern Conference after making it so far. LeBron made it to the finals in 2007, took a step back a little bit in 2008. Despite putting up great numbers, the team suffered a little bit. I don't think they have that offensive creativity, especially in the backcourt anymore. And to rely on Luka like that all the time, I think it's just going to catch up with them in terms of how that's going to play out. And I think they're just going to take a step back just in terms of I don't think they have the offensive talent there, especially in the backcourt. And I think it's going to be a little tough for Luka this season, despite having great numbers. I think their team might suffer a bit. And that's it. I think they could finish ahead of the Lakers in 7th place. And did this thing just die? Yes. Did that thing just die? Yes, it did. All right, moving on. We have the Pelicans. There at number 9 there. And I really like this team. I should have them higher. CJ McCollum, Brandon Ingram, Herb Jones, Valanciunas up there in the front court. But the big thing is Zion's health, and that's been the question mark for the past couple of seasons. How is that going to play out? How is that going to be? But I should have this team higher. I messed up on that. I should have the Lakers lower. I should have the Lakers 9 and have the Pelicans 7. I should have switched them. I could possibly have the Pelicans 7. This was a mistake on my part. But, yeah, I really like their team. And I think Zion's health, whatever the case may be, whatever he's going to be able to give this team is going to be a plus for them. Whatever it is, maybe if it's 60 games, 65 games, whatever it is, he's going to be a force when he's out there. He's going to be bullying people and scoring and being efficient. What are they going to be able to do with Brandon Ingram and CJ McCollum? I just like their scoring with those two guys, and then you add a Zion to that, and Herb Jones' development to be able to knock down shots and be able to be a vulture on defense. Jose Alvarado, those guys there. They still have Devontae Graham, Jackson Hayes to be athletic for them. Larry Nance Jr. still on this team. I really like this team, and I should have had them higher. I should have probably had them 7th or 6th, but I'll switch that, whatever the case may be. But I think the Lakers are going to switch just because of the uncertainty with the Lakers. But I guess the only question here is what Zion is going to be health-wise and what they're going to be able to do with Zion going forward. But I really like Zion on this team. He reminds me of a Barkley, Sean Kemp type player, just inside the paint, finishing and dunking and causing havoc and going coast to coast with his handle. And he looks to be in shape, so that's a big plus for the New Orleans Pelicans. I should have had them higher. This was a mistake. I should have them. You want to know what? I'm here. Screw it. Let's switch it. Why did this die? Did this die like that? Did it really die like that? Let me see if I can do this right now. Let me see if I can do this. Hold on. I'm doing this on live on the podcast. Do not care. Do not care. I do not care. I do not care. I'm doing this live on the podcast. I'm doing this on the podcast. I don't care. I made a mistake, y'all. I'm sorry. I made a mistake. I don't care. I'm doing this on the podcast. I do not care. I'll switch it. The Pelicans are going to be higher. I just like their team and their offense and their young and their enthusiasm and Willie Green as a coach, having that team there. CJ McCollum being the veteran and the steady hand for them. The ability to score and play make and be just a hub for them and kind of lead that team. I think they're going to be better. I had to switch that around. I was letting LeBron James and Anthony Davis health-wise override the fact that the Pelicans have more talent and are a better team. I'm sorry. Next, I have in the conference, I have the Portland Trailblazers, I believe. Yes, I have the Portland Trailblazers with Dame time. Anthony Simon signed that big contract extension. Was it last year or this year? This offseason? I can't remember. They added Jeremy Grant. They drafted Shaedon Sharpe there. It's just basically what can Chauncey Billups push this team and get these guys the right fit? Can Dame get back to another all-NBA level there after last season with those injuries? Can this team get back to that? I don't know. They're going to be in the position to be in the play-in, I think. I don't think they're better than those other teams. Can Dame catch lightning in the bottle again? How long he's going to stay in Portland is always the question, and how is that going to turn out for them? And, of course, everyone's questioned that, but he's been loyal to Portland. He's been sitting there through monster rebuilds, basically. They traded C.J. McCollum. I thought that would have been the perfect time for him to be like, you want to know what, I want out of here. But he's holding it down, still staying there. Him and Chauncey Billups, can Chauncey Billups coach his team to be a little bit more consistent? Jeremy Grant adds a little bit more of a scoring punch, and defensively, he's not going to be the number one on this team, or maybe not even. He's going to slide down to the 3. But unlike Aaron Gordon, I think we've seen a little bit more scoring from Jeremy Grant than Aaron Gordon in that situation in terms of being relied on to score. I think he's going to be able to carry that. Shaedon Sharpe is a very impressive young prospect that they drafted. Who I think is going to be very good at that, a different version of that athleticism that desperately Portland needed, that Dame needed for all these years in Portland that he didn't have. To finally get it, let's see what he can develop into. We'll see if Dame sticks around for another season there, but I think it's going to be a struggle season for them in the play-in. As we move on, we have the Sacramento Kings, one of the most intriguing teams in the league to me. They drafted Keegan Murray in the draft there. De'Aaron Fox, a bonus. How is that going to be with their offense? They brought in Malik Monk. Can this team score enough and finally end their playoff drought? That's always been the question. That's always been the steady question for a long time now. Can they lead to the playoffs? Can they be better? How are they going to do it? De'Aaron Fox, Domantas Sabonis, figure it out, please. The Kings deserve, their fan base deserves to be in the playoffs. Their fans go crazy. Bring back the cowbells from the early 2000s that we've heard. We haven't heard the Kings in the playoffs, I think, since 2006. I think that's the last time Seattle made it too. Was that it's crazy how long they've been out of the playoffs. But in terms of what Mike Brown's going to be there, he's going to be a defensive coach to bring a little bit of defense, whatever defense he can add to this team. They're not going to be very good defensively, but offensively they should be peak. They should be one of the best offensive teams in the league in terms of scoring. And what can they bring to this team going forward? I don't know. But, of course, let's just hope that the Kings finally end their playoff drought some way. Either it's a play-in or whatever the case may be, and continue to build. That fan base deserves better. And if not, move them to Seattle. As we continue, I have the Houston Rockets there. I like Jalen Green. I like Jabari Smith. I think it was Kevin Porter Jr. who came out and said, "Hey, we're not going to be a good half-court team, so we're just going to try to get out and run," which every young team should be able to do, should try to do. Build some type of foundation through their offense, through transition. Maybe they get better defensively, creating steals and havoc in that way, and they'll be able to run things on the offensive end. Maybe that's what they're aiming for. They have Tyler Sengun there, who's intriguing as a big man. So it's just whatever this team is going to be with Jalen Green and Jabari Smith. I was high on Jabari Smith in the draft. I think he's going to be a good scorer and be able to catch and shoot and be able to defend and create some type of foundation for this Rockets team that desperately needs it after the trade with James Harden and trying to figure out what direction they're trying to go. But I like their young guys. It's just Jalen Green and Jabari Smith, and what can they do in this tough Western Conference. And Kevin Porter Jr., who just signed I think it's a 5-year, $82 million deal. I think he signed, or a 4-year. I don't know the specifics, but I know it's around $82 million down there in Houston. They're going to get out and try to run and try to just be exciting. And they're going to be, you can check in sometimes and see what they're doing. Maybe they get hot and just be a high-scoring team in the league. We'll see what they can do as a low-seeding team. But this team could be a team that tanks for Victor Wembanyama. Not going to lie. It could be happening. And at number 13, I have the Oklahoma City Thunder. I don't know what this team does. Chet Holmgren went down with an injury. He's going to be out for the season. They got Josh Giddey. They got Sean Gilgeous-Alexander. What direction is this team going to be? Are they going to continue to go for draft picks, which has been the motto, has been the thing in play? Can you imagine Chet Holmgren and Victor Wembanyama in Oklahoma City on the same team? 2 7'4" guys, potentially being in your front court or your wing player or your forwards. Is SGA going to want to stay there and be in another rebuild situation, another losing season? Is he going to be a trade chip for more picks? Potentially, I could see that. I can see SGA going to a different plethora of teams, and really going to potentially going back to Toronto. I think Toronto would be a nice opportunity for him. We'll see how that goes. They're probably going to be looking for a little bit more higher picks, but who knows what Oklahoma City is going to do there. I mean, Chet Holmgren went down for the start of the season. What does that mean for them? Are they going to tank? Is SGA going to stay around for that? Lorenzo Dort has developed into a nice two-guard, 3-and-D guy type of player. We'll see what the Oklahoma City Thunder do, but they're going to be in the potential to tank. Next, we got the San Antonio Spurs. People call them the most boring team in the league, and I think this is probably the one year I'm probably going to agree with that. They traded Javonte Murray in the offseason. They didn't keep Danilo Gallinari. Greg Popovich is the longest tenured coach in the NBA right now. I think since he was hired, there's been 297 coaches or something like that in the league or something like that. That's crazy. But in terms of this team, I'm just going to talk about it. They're going to be tanking for Victor Wembanyama. This is a team that should do it. By all means, they should be doing it. I think they have the inside look at him in terms of, I'm going to say, a French connection with Tony Parker. Maybe he has some inside knowledge of what Victor Wembanyama is and what he does for their national team. I'm not going to lie about that. I believe they drafted a kid from France. I can't remember his name. But he had the cool colored hair at the draft and very fashionable. But yeah, this should be a team tanking for Victor Wembanyama. I do not know how long Greg Popovich is going to be there coaching in San Antonio. I think this was a setup for Quinn Snyder to take over eventually, especially with his connection to the Austin Toros, where he got his job before he went to the Utah Jazz and the G League affiliate for the San Antonio Spurs. So I think there's a transition period going on for the Spurs, and maybe they're trying to tank and see what happens, and maybe Quinn Snyder's keeping his eye on that. I think that's the most intriguing thing about the Spurs this season. Looking at their roster, it's like they have Keldon Johnson, Vessel, Jakob Poeltl. They have a couple of young guys there, but it's like I don't know what San Antonio is going to be doing. I don't know how many games Popovich is going to want to coach this season, but we'll see. But I think this should be definitely a tank for Victor Wembanyama. And lastly, we have the Utah Jazz. They're tanking. They traded Rudy Gobert. They traded their all-NBA players for picks and young players and players who are fringe. Lauri Markkanen, Colin Sexton, who they signed to an extension, who they're probably going to be like, yo, score as many points as you want. We're going to lose anyway. Looking at this team, they have Mike Conley, Jordan Clarkson. They already traded Bogdanović to Detroit for Kelly Olynyk. What is this team going to be going forward? They're tanking, and they're tanking fast. And that's basically what Danny Ainge came there to do, and I think that was the smartest thing that he came in and did. This is not going to work. We're not going to suffer through this another season. Utah, basically in the lottery, is basically like losing in the first round or second round every year. Let's tank this. And when you take over, what do they say? You don't take down, when you're tearing down the house, you don't leave a room up in the corner. You tear it down. And that's what Danny Ainge did, trading Rudy Gobert, trading Donovan Mitchell, and basically starting from scratch. And there's a French guy that can potentially end up in Utah again. So be hopeful, Utah fans. And that basically does it for my plan, who's in, who's out. I'm honestly going to sit there and say I think in terms of who's going to I'll get into that with the guys. Hopefully I can do that with the guys this weekend and basically go over who my Western Conference Finals picks are, my Eastern Conference Finals picks are, who I think can win the finals. I'll go into that with them hopefully this weekend. Oh, there that is. But yeah, basically go into that this weekend and see what that does going forward with that. But now we can get into awards. There we go. Nice little graphic there. We can go into the 2022-2023 awards. Who do I think is going to be MVP, Rookie of the Year, Sixth Man, Defensive Player of the Year, Coach of the Year, Most Improved Player. That's basically what I'm going to be going over. And first, who's going to be MVP in my eyes? There's a lot of candidates. Nikola Jokic won last year. But quite honestly, for MVP, I believe Joel Embiid is going to have the say in this one. I believe he's going to put on a show this season and basically lead Philly to the 1 seed. And James Harden's going to help him try to get that MVP wholeheartedly this year. And really just lead the team on the offensive end. I believe last year before he got hurt, Philadelphia was first in the West by a considerable margin before he got hurt earlier in the season. And I think Joel Embiid is going to be trying to get off on the right foot. He's able to get in shape. He was able to stay healthy throughout the majority of the season besides that freak accident towards the end there. And then in the playoffs, of course, he got that, I believe he broke his face or whatever the case may be. He got that orbital fracture, whatever the case may be. But I think he's going to be a man on a mission. I think James Harden is going to be a man on a mission, but he understands that he has to get the ball to Joel Embiid and get him going. And I think they're going to be a workhorse throughout the season. I got Giannis Antetokounmpo finishing second just because I think that he's going to be on such a tear. And he's always going to be in the conversation as long as it goes. I did not put Nikola Jokic up there. I think there's going to be voter fatigue unless he wins 50-plus some odd games and leads this Nuggets team to a crazy record. And as a homer pick, I have Jason Tatum there. I don't care. I think without Ime Udoka, he has a storyline there that potentially could work and be in that position. And it's going to be a monster season, get 25 points a game, whatever the case may be a force defensively there for that team in Boston. And I give him a chance to win. That's a homer pick. I don't give a damn. I put Jason Tatum on the ballot for me. Who wins Defensive Player of the Year? I got Giannis Antetokounmpo winning. I think his force and the way he can test shots and derail stuff offensively and basically just like a free safety, kind of like Troy Polamalu, basically just creating havoc back there, tearing stuff up. I think that's going to be his calling card for the rest of his career for the next 5 seasons, in my opinion. I think he's just that much of a force on that end. I have Joel Embiid finishing second, potentially as a winner. I think he's going to be a forefront in the front court this year, blocking shots, contesting shots, being able to switch out. I think Joel Embiid is going to be hungry this year to do a lot of things on both ends of the ball, and that's why I have him winning MVP this year. And potentially winning Defensive Player of the Year. I have Rudy Gobert. All the metrics are there. All the guys that he's probably not going to get voted for unless Minnesota wins like 50 games or something like that. But his defensive impact in terms of blocking shots, deterring shots in terms of people not wanting to shoot the ball around the rim, he does that. That's always going to be there. He's great at that. We can't ignore that. Going into my most intriguing one is Sixth Man of the Year. I have Norman Powell of the Los Angeles Clippers there winning that. I think he's just going to be able to shoot the lights out of the ball, score 20 points in an efficient way for the Los Angeles Clippers there. There's also Luke Kennard. There's other guys there that are going to be able to score, but I think Norman Powell's the more polished scorer, the more dependable scorer. I have Malcolm Brogdon finishing second in Boston in terms of coming off the bench behind Marcus Smart. I think he's going to be a real factor and have a chance to win just in terms of what he brings to the table of being able to shoot and pass and defend as a secondary guy and be plugged in late in games as the sixth man still coming off the bench. He's going to be qualified for that. I think that's going to be awesome for that. And I have Bones Highland as a wild card there. I think he's going to be able to be a scoring factor for the Denver Nuggets off the bench and really try to get his own shot there in Denver. Most improved player, I think this one's a lock for me. I got Tyrese Halliburton at Indiana. I think he's great. I want Boston to draft him. Unfortunately, the Kings made a good pick, and then, of course, the Kings toss him away and trade him. But I think he's going to be a guy that can get 18 and 10, 18 and 12 potentially on the season. Being at a lottery team, he's going to have the ball in his hand a lot. He's going to be trying to find guys. He's going to be up and down in Indiana. I really like his game. People questioned his shot coming into the league. I think he's going to improve on that. But I think he just has a chip on his shoulder, and he's going to be ready to prove that against Sacramento, but not only against Sacramento, but against the rest of the league. I think he's just going to be able to push himself and really work himself to be one of the best players. Maybe not an all-star, but a very good player where you got to be like, this guy's he's on the come up in this league. In second, I have Franz Wagner finishing as most improved. I really like his game and able to shoot the ball and able what he's doing, be able to do there as a three-man in Orlando. Can he continue that with all those mouths to feed? I hope so. Also have Jalen Brunson finishing third. I think him just going to New York, getting more touches, getting more of responsibility there than he did in Dallas, and being the man technically as the guy to be the lead guard there. I think he has a real chance to there. I did not put Tyrese Maxey on there. I think Tyrese Maxey should be there as well. I really like his game. I think he's going to improve. I think he's going to try to boost himself up from last season and really get a chance there to be in that conversation as well. Next up is probably a wild card that people did not see. I'm going to try to move down so you guys can see here. Can I move it? No, I got to switch over. 1 second. We're going to move down here. Boop, 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 boop. There we go. And rookie of the year, I had Benedict Mathurin. And people are probably going to be like, why not pick Paulo Banchero or pick Jabari Smith, who I have in the other two spots? I think this kid is just going to be able to hit the ground running. He's going to be able to have a lot of open shots there. Just watch a highlight tape from him in preseason or whatever he is, the athleticism, the way he gets up and down the court. I think it's going to be impressive for the Indiana Pacers. Him and Tyrese, I think, are going to have a nice mix there and just be able to go with Rick Carlisle and just be able to run and flow and go and attack the rim and just be ready to go. He's going to be able to start day one. He's going to get a lot of touches. He's going to get a lot of minutes, and I think he's going to be a good player in the league. Everyone remembers when he said he can go at LeBron or whatever the case may be. He doesn't think LeBron's all that good and all that stuff. Whatever the case may be, he can be overzealous all he wants to be. He's a rookie. He's supposed to do that. Come in the league on guns blazing. Why not? I love that about him. But we'll see. Probably Paulo Banchero is probably the safer bet because he's going to get 20 and 8, 20 and 9 in that range there. But I really like this kid out of Indiana. As we continue, who's going to win Coach of the Year? And I'm going Mike Malone from the Denver Nuggets. I think this team really has a chance to win 50, 55 games with Nikola. I keep messing up his name. Nikola Jokic, the Joker, basically. I think he's going to be able to lead that team. And he's been a great coach, Mike Malone, especially even last season, getting for that team to 46 wins. Of course, he got a great player, but I think the win totals are going to get Mike Malone a little bit more recognition there as Coach of the Year. As we move on, we got Ty Lue finishing second. I think Ty Lue finally having his core together, has a real good shot at it. Having Paul George and Kawhi Leonard back and how to lead that team in the development of Reggie Jackson and Terrence Mann. I did not mention Terrence Mann earlier. He's a good player as well for the Clippers. Luke Kennard and Norman Powell and whatever John Wall can bring from him off the bench, whatever the case may be, I think he's in a real good position to win that. And third, I'm a homer pick again. I don't give a damn. Joe Mazzulla, if he can somehow navigate this team to 50-plus wins or even 49 and have this team looking ready to go come playoff time just before the playoffs, I think he's in a prime position to win Coach of the Year. But let's get into a couple of what we got here. We got a couple of games here, pick'em games here early on in the season, opening night, first game of the season. I can't wait. I cannot wait for these games here. You got the Sixers and Celtics at 7:30 starting off on TNT. I got the Celtics winning that. I know that's probably a tall task without Robert Williams, who's going to guard Joel Embiid and James Harden on night one of the NBA. Joel Embiid is going to be a beast coming out the gate, trying to rip everything off the Boston Garden floor. But I think Tatum and Brown are going to be able to step up to the challenge in the scoring-wise department. I think Boston's going to be a little bit more fluent offensively, and I think that's going to be a real key for them. And I think it's going to be a close one, but I got Boston edging that one out. We got the Lakers and Warriors in the second game. I just think the ball movement of the Warriors is going to kill the Lakers. I don't think they're ready yet. I don't think the Lakers are going to be ready until about January, February, later in the season, second half of the season, to turn it around and really get their thoughts in order, get their team in order, their construction of their team in order, their organization of their team. I just think the Warriors ball movement is going to kill them, and it's going to be crazy. It's ring opening night. I don't think the Lakers have a chance. Moving on, we got Knicks Grizzlies the next night. Grizzlies, John Moran. I'm just going with John Moran. I don't give a damn. Desmond Bane, Dillon Brooks. I think they're going to just attack in New York. The next game on this schedule is, come on now, work with me, technical difficulties. We got the Mavs and Suns, the Western Conference semifinals rematch from last season, the previous season. Why is that not working? There we go. From last season. I think the Suns get this one. I think DeAndre and Devin Booker have something to prove. I think everybody on the Suns have something to prove. And I think they're going to attack Luka and try to make it as hard as possible, make it as miserable as possible, make it as chippy as possible. And hey, attention Suns, use DeAndre Ayton. He can help you. He's big. He has an advantage all the time. Feed that man. You just paid him. Get the most out of him. Maybe that will help you win. Go with that. As we continue here, we got the Bucks and Sixers. I'm going the Sixers. Well, yep. Did I pick the Sixers? I think I did. Did I pick that on? Yes, I got the Sixers winning this. I think Joel Embiid and James Harden are just going to create a little bit of difficulty for the Milwaukee Bucks early on, early in the season, and I think they're going to be ready to go, especially after maybe dropping that game to Boston. But I think they're going to be able to man that game, especially at home in Philadelphia. And just create some havoc and some problems early on for the Milwaukee Bucks early to start the season. Next up, we have the Clippers and Lakers. I got the Clippers. I think the Clippers just have too much depth, too much wing play. That's going to be a problem for the Lakers to guard. Anthony Davis and LeBron are going to get their numbers, but it's going to be, I think it's a Clippers night in L.A. Moving forward, we got the Celtics and Heat rematch of the Eastern Conference Finals from last season to start the season early. I think the Celtics get that one as well. I think the Celtics are just better right now than Miami. Of course, Bam's going to be a problem, but up front, I think Jimmy Butler's going to come out to try to play. But I just think right now, unless Tyler Hero or somebody, Duncan Robinson, shoot the lights out, which I don't think they're ready to do against Boston right now. I got the Celtics and Jason Tatum and Jaylen Brown really leading this team and having a big game down there in Miami. And last but not least, we got the Nuggets and Warriors to close out the week. I believe this game is on Friday night. And I got the Warriors against the Nuggets. I still think it's early in the season. I think that's going to be a tough matchup for the Golden State Warriors to try to even – for the Warriors to even match up with the Golden State Warriors, especially on the guard play. I think they're just going to be ready to go and decimate the Nuggets. I don't think the Nuggets are ready. I think over the course of the season they can build themselves there. And Joker's probably going to be a little bit more meaner and a little bit more willing to battle down there. But I just got the Warriors closing that one out. But that is the season preview for the Basketball Soapbox, opening out season 2, episode 1. That will close it out for this episode. It's been a long one. This is probably one of my longest ones. Hopefully people enjoy it. And check out my other videos from the past season and shorter videos or whatever the case may be. I'll be uploading this. I'll be trying to get with the guys eventually. We were trying to get to this today, but it just didn't work out. Hopefully on the weekend, we can have more of a season preview and look at other guys and other teams and other players and stuff like that and things we've seen from the opening week in the NBA. Trying to get on the Emmanuel Vincent podcast, the Mr. Vincent podcast. I'll put a link to his podcast as well down below. He touches on basketball. He's been touching on football. He's been doing a lot of things, sports-related, photography-related. Check him out. But that will do it for episode 1, season 2 of the Basketball Soapbox. This is what am I trying to say here? This has been a creative process for me, especially finding StreamYard. Shout out to StreamYard for this platform to create all these graphics and backgrounds and stuff like that, which makes it easier and smoother to talk. To basically bring up topics. This is the first time I'm using it. It's been seamless and been easy. I look forward to using this with the guys. This has been awesome. But thank you guys for joining me in episode 1 of season 2, the season 2 premiere. I'll be bringing more basketball content and more breakdowns and more previews and more everything basketball related. I'm excited for this basketball season, and I hope you guys enjoyed this video and wait for the next one. Until next time.